Very good. Well, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Sorry that we were a couple minutes late. There's no cause for public hearing or old items to discussion unless either commissioners have something. Okay. New item of discussion. I invited Beth Zimmer to come down from the Innovation Collaborative, not collaboration, right?
Correct.
Collaborative. We've come to know each other through Radius Co-work. That's the main thing, wasn't it?
Ice House?
Ice House, yes. Right in the Northwest Workforce Development Board. A bunch of points of contact that we've made over the years. And that's right, we went down to see the co-working spaces down south. Did you go to the Youngstown trip? Me and Jim?
No.
Oh, that wasn't you.
We were
That
going
was
to
Brian
go.
Slay.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've known each other off and on for a couple of years now, and I've really found her insights as related to economic development to be interesting. We were talking about just catching up on things a couple of weeks ago, and she was pointing me in the direction of all these reports that I had no idea existed out there about the local economy in Northwest Pennsylvania, and so I wanted to invite her to this meeting in order to talk about the Innovation Collaborative, as well as some of the reports and things that we may be unfamiliar with from an economic development standpoint. So with that, you want to introduce yourself, maybe more in depth, and tell us what you do, and
Sure.
let's do your presentation.
Thank you, Ben. So does she have a presentation on?
No, she can't see.
Okay.
We're not that technologically advanced.
There
There are times I feel that smoke signals might actually be more efficient.
No problem. So yes, I'm Beth Zimmer, and a few years ago, back in 2012, I was working as a talent acquisition executive and business development executive in Erie, and as a business development professional, I was working towards figuring out how we could create an environment in Northwest Pennsylvania that was more conducive to more businesses and more jobs. So fast forward, I stumbled across the fact that almost all the net new jobs are created by companies that are less than 5 years old. And started talking to folks about, when people talk about an economy in Northwest Pennsylvania, we all know Northwest Pennsylvania's economy has been declining for several years. So when you talk about improving an economy, everybody talks about family-sustaining wage jobs. So if we know that since the data's been tracked on a national scale for 30 plus years, almost 100% of the net new jobs are created by companies that are less than 5 years old, maybe the thought was maybe we're not doing enough to encourage more startups. In my position in talent acquisition with this boutique HR firm, I had connections, pretty deep connections with economic development folks in town. So pulled a bunch of thought leaders together, business leaders, philanthropists, angel investors, community leaders, and we talked about the problem, and we went and started talking to the folks that were in economic development to say who owns the niche in economic development that encourages startups. And we really didn't get an answer, and there were some likely players that we thought maybe would be the folks that would be that piece in the economic development sphere, and they were all very busy. They had very, very full plates, and for whatever reason, they weren't paying attention to the need to encourage more startups. So we went to work, continuing to meet maybe once a month from October 2012 to January, and came to the realization that this was something that was real and that we really needed to get some feet on the street and really focus on this work. So we were able to get a grant from the Department of Community and Economic Development back in 2013 to bring some folks in to assess our environment for entrepreneurship. And these folks, we went through the national request for proposal process, And the folks that came to Erie with the most experience were an organization called Jumpstart out of Northeast Ohio. And Jumpstart had realized the same situation in Northeast Ohio a few years before that, and had realized some pretty significant success there, so much so that the federal government asked them to go to Detroit and do what they did in Cleveland to help Detroit at the time. And what they did was say, you know, we can't fly in there with our Superman capes on and fix Detroit, but we can go help community leaders understand what we did and the lessons that we learned. So when they got to us in 2013, they had experience in assessing entrepreneurial environments in 15 or 16 other communities, regions across the United States. So they were well heeled, and they worked with us for several months to confirm our initial assumption that we were not doing enough from an entrepreneurial ecosystem perspective. And they provided us with a report that showed, and you can see this on our website at startupeeriepa.com. The report shows, it's very depressing, the first half of the report. It confirms that absolutely the 8 counties in northwestern Pennsylvania are way behind comparatively with the rest of the country. But the good news is the second half of that report is a laundry list of recommendations that if communities collectively come together and execute on those recommendations over time, we can make a positive impact on improving our economy, at least in the space for startups. Oh. What is that?
You changed it from
It
early
sounds
better
really
check
cute.
your text.
Oh no, that's only for a text message.
That's great. So anyway, we have now, as of May of 2014, the report was publicly released, and again, it's on our website at startupeeriepa.com. We have categorized in 6 different priority areas things that communities in the 8 counties of northwestern Pennsylvania can work towards to improve the entrepreneurial environment or culture in those communities. So you can look at that. The 6 strategic priority areas that all of the actions are prioritized under is the number one most important recommendation is that we need to change our cultures to be much less complacent and risk averse. So when you think about changing a culture, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. And how long is that going to take? Erie, I know, is that we describe it as kind of a depression-era mindset that has kind of taken hold over the years, where when we hear bad news, say the obvious GE, laying off thousands of people, we tend to collectively just kind of hunker down and try to figure out what to do with less, instead of poking our heads out and looking around at the rest of the world and saying, where are the opportunities in this news, and what are other people doing that we might be able to somehow replicate to progress into the future versus try to just be insular.
I think that's a very Pennsylvania
Do you?
mentality. I mean, I would say that most of the counties that we deal with and the people that we deal with have the exact same sense, and it's one of the things that we constantly work to try to change here is looking at things from a positive perspective, or trying to generate opportunity or the concept of investment. We've had different projects where the value is so apparent. It's almost, I mean, there's always challenges, or you're always gambling on some level with some projects, but there are projects where you're sitting there going, and people will still say, it would have been better if you just kept your money. Like it just would have been better if you just, at least you had the money, or something, like that kind of a thing is trying to convey to people, you can't save your way out of a declining economy. Like, you have to make smart investments.
Right.
And when those investments are smarter, you feel like they're positive, celebrating that, like this is positive growth here, and what ends up happening in so many occasions is the stuff that is positive, it doesn't get drowned out by the negativity, but it's like constantly challenged or not really celebrated. And then in other cases, when there's a mistake or something goes wrong in some area, it's like, everywhere. It's just like, oh, there we go again, another, So I totally get what you're saying, but I think I've talked to different people in Erie that are either part of the county planning team and some of the other ones, and I think that there's so many similarities in that mentality.
Okay.
So I totally identify with what you're saying. but I think it's definitely a regional issue. I don't know if it's a Rust Belt thing or if it's a, that kind of thing. I mean, that's the way Pittsburgh was in the late 90s, when I lived down there, everybody was just would trash Pittsburgh all the time.
Yeah.
And now, since they've turned the corner and they've got their tech boom going, like, it's completely different mindset, and that was a long cultural change. I mean, that was like a 20-year cultural change.
Right, and these things do take time, but it's looking to stories like that can give us some hope and say we just have to keep our heads down and keep working towards this.
Yeah, in 97, Pittsburgh didn't look anything like it does now. I mean, nothing like it does now. And every once in a while when I go down there, I'm just like astonished at what they've done in 20 years, and that still can't get a road to function for more than a year without having to demolish it. But I mean, that whole south side, I mean, the redevelopment down there has just been just shocking. I mean, and even in the north end, they're investing in, the outskirts of the city now. They have a lot of challenges still in the city, but I mean, it's just the mentality isn't, at least from what I've seen, not the same as was then.
So hopefully that's us in the next 10 years, right?
Well, I mean, do you feel like Erie's turning a corner? I mean, I feel like they are. I mean, it seems like there's a renewed optimism, even with the situation with GE. I mean, it's in other areas. I'm constantly getting positive press stories, business developments, like out of Erie. It seems like there's at least a core group there that's like moving in a good direction.
There absolutely is. And it does feel good, and it feels very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So, and going back to that first priority and how do we change the culture, one of the things that we have done is adopted the entrepreneurial mindset training that gets really at the systemic or foundational issues of individual mindsets. So the program, as Ben knows, is called the Ice House Entrepreneurship Program. The name of it can be deceiving because it's not about starting businesses at all. It's about changing your mindset or reigniting your mindset that you were born with to learn how to apply thinking and acting like successful entrepreneurs do. It's a training that is effective with adults at any age, and it's effective with students, and the youngest ever in the world to receive the program were all of the 7th graders in the Erie City schools. Last year, the United Way funded a pilot so that all of these 7th graders would get the curriculum. And so that was really interesting to watch, and to watch these 7th graders, they had a culminating event where I can send you the video if you help me remember, but these students are saying such visionary things about having a growth mindset now and understanding that they have a responsibility to figure out where they have talents and passions and how they can apply those to help other people in their life. And 7th grade. So it's fantastic. But we've also done it with union workers that were dislocated, 30-year union mindset kind of thing. And after a 3-day fire hose type experience with this Ice House stuff, they were really transformed and saying, why didn't I have this in high school? Or, you mean I don't have to stay in manufacturing anymore if I don't want to? You mean I'm going to go to work every day now in my new job and think about how I'm adding value to my employer? I never would have thought that way otherwise. So it really is, it's a great, great program. So the more people we can touch with the Ice House Entrepreneurship Program, I don't know where the tipping point is, but the faster we can change that collective culture and collective mindset, right?
I've got a couple of those books I'll have to share one with you. The Ice House books.
Thank you.
Who owns the Ice House, I guess.
Yeah, the curriculum is based on the book, Who Owns the Ice House? The 8 Life Lessons of an Unlikely Entrepreneur. So, and I can speak for 2 days on the program, so if you have questions, I can.
We'd like to actually invite you back to literally speak for 2 days on.
Beautiful.
For 3 days, right? The class is 3 days?
We can do a 3-day class.
We can do a 3-day class, yeah. Let's
Yeah.
set that up. We tried a year ago or a year and a half ago, and scheduling wise just didn't work out, but I'd like to try again.
Yeah, it would be great. It's very difficult to get people to take 3 days of time, but it's so worth it once it happens. And yeah, once you have the training and you understand it, you feel kind of a weight on your shoulders, like I need to touch as many people with this as we can. So it's really cool. The program is spreading throughout the world, and the founder is only an hour and a half away from Erie. He lives in Mentor, Ohio.
Forgot that.
Yeah, it's crazy. So culture is that first, and the other things we've done around culture and we continue to do is holding events and educating the public as to why entrepreneurship is important, and educating people that are sitting in their garage or at their kitchen table with an idea on a napkin. There's a whole ecosystem of people and organizations that exist, at least in part, if not in full, to help them scale those ideas, start and grow their businesses. We brought another program to town called Co-Starters. Co-Starters is a program that is a 9-week long program, and it's facilitated by experienced entrepreneurs. And it's the people come in, they have to, the one criteria is they have to have an idea, and their schedule has to be clear for these 9 weeks. So they come in and they are helped, coached to vet their idea by going out and talking to potential customers and such. And then each of the 8 weeks is learning about starting and growing your business. So we have guest speakers come in from a marketing perspective, from a business attorney, CPAs, supply chain, finance, etc. All of those 8 weeks, and then the 9th week ends in a graduation kind of pitch night where everyone from the general public can come in and watch these pitches, and it's great. And the biggest value that comes out of that, where we're starting our 3rd cohort in September, the greatest value is truly the community that's built for these people. They're learning, and they're learning stuff they really need to learn, but they're learning it alongside 11, 12, 13 other people that are kind of in the same space as them. Not necessarily competing, but starting a business. So they build those relationships, and then we have get-togethers for the other cohorts to all come together, and the more we have, the more the community grows. So it's really cool. And what I figured out, I did the math, and it wasn't on purpose, but there's a statistic out there. It's from 2014, and I don't know when these numbers will be updated, but the Economic Innovation Group, EIG.org, they have a report called Dynamism in Retreat. Have any of you seen it?
Only because you shared it with me.
Right, I did share with you. It shows that just in Erie County, every year 260 businesses die and only 200 start. So we have a lot of work to do, but if we can have 15 people in 4 cohorts a year, there's the potential to fill that 60, right? Not that every single person that goes to Co-Starters is going to end up starting a business, but we got to fill that gap somehow. So real quickly go through the other priorities. Besides culture change, the second highest priority is the need to establish a formal entrepreneurial network. So for Erie, we've done that. The Innovation Collaborative is set up to be the backbone support for all of the organizations that exist in part or in full to support entrepreneurship. So our only goal is to educate, market the ecosystem, support those that serve entrepreneurs, help them with the connections, help them improve their services or change their services based on what the entrepreneurs are telling us.
What?
Do you want to-
Yeah. Actually, it is. Thank you for that.
One more. But it's very impressive you remember it all. Good
Oh,
job.
it's like, yeah.
I mean, really, you don't need it, to be honest.
No, that's true.
But you'll have it for later. So, and then our second leg to our stool is that we facilitate the collaborations amongst the service providers to help entrepreneurs. And then our third leg to our stool is to measure progress overall in the ecosystem and communicate whether we're moving forward or backwards. We don't exist to provide programs and services or compete or duplicate what any other organization is doing in the community. The programs that we do have are based on the fact that there are gaps, and there isn't an organization out there that has the capacity to fill them. So as you can see, the third strategic priority is to expand economic gardening. And what was interesting about that, economic gardening, is when a company's not necessarily a startup, they're 5 years on, and but they exist in a NAICS code, in federal industry codes, that has been deemed as a high growth industry. And if the leadership in that company has the fire in their belly that wants to grow year over year, 20% for the next 5 years, there are tools and best practices out there that can help them do that. And that can create jobs a lot quicker than the grassroots work that it takes to create a thriving entrepreneurial startup culture, right? The fourth is that the entrepreneurs, when Jumpstart was here, they talked to hundreds of entrepreneurs. And they said we need a better mentoring network. We've got some mentors that are great, but there aren't enough entrepreneurs that have been there, done that I can lean on. And then developing more services for startups was our fifth priority. So programs like Ben Franklin, that's services for high growth. Since this report came out, we've had a couple of others come out. Obviously, Gannon has an incubator. Our innovation district has just launched an accelerator, a 10-week accelerator in partnership with Singularity University. The Innovation Commons at Penn State Barron's, another service, and the Beehives. So there have been some things going there. The reason some of these are gray instead of black is because the gray, we haven't had been able to have as much impact on those areas as we'd like to in the 3 years that we've been in existence.
Those are really challenging, though. I mean, the mentoring network is something that in every industry or every field you would want, to a greater extent. It's trying to create the culture of paying it forward, or trying to develop plus good companies bring up more workers, people that you can cherry pick, the pool gets better.
Right, and to be frank, a lot of that has been around the lack of ability to collaborate effectively.
Yeah.
There's no carrot or stick. So say economic gardening. We see the regional, MEP, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, being key in helping and leading that effort because of their subject matter expertise that they have. But because there's no carrot or stick, they've got a lot of other things on their plate. They haven't been able to come to the table and do that. Enhanced mentoring, we have mentoring organizations like SCORE and Ben Franklin and Athena, SPDC, but they don't, or the incubator, they don't want to share their mentors. So, again, scarcity mentality, to be abundant in their thinking, and it's just been a challenge. So those are the gray areas, and then the last priority there, and certainly not least, is the need to increase student entrepreneurial programs. And we've had a little bit of impact on that with the ASOS program and our annual showcase, the Collegiate Innovation Showcase, where all the students, the faculty and administration at the 4 universities in LECOM pick their top 2 most innovative teams for that school year, and they come together and compete against each other for cash and prizes, and that's been pretty cool. But we're only doing that service or that program because the 4 universities in LECOM aren't really at a place where they can centralize this type of activity that's amongst all of the different universities. So that's basically our work plan and the stuff that we have been focused on. But truly, I would say in the 3 years that we've been around, it's been the culture work, the laying the groundwork for the culture change that has been most of our focus. I've talked to most of this stuff as far as we guide activities, and you guys can look at that in more detail and ask questions if you'd like. One of the key things, though, is that a couple of things. We're focused every day on making sure that we stay neutral, like Switzerland. So we're not affiliated with any elected official. We're not affiliated with any particular university. We are in support of anything that is in existence or is coming into existence to help the success of startups. And we did not stand up another 501c3 nonprofit in perpetuity. Our expectation from the beginning is that, okay, the community is not at a place where they understand the need for this work. We had one philanthropist who committed to funding us for 3 years. And his directive, if you will, or opinion was, if the community has not taken ownership in 3 years, then we might as well lose hope. I'm gonna commit to 3 years and no more. So, our goal from day one is to work ourselves out of being a 501c3 organization, because we believe it's in the best interest of the community as a whole for this work to be integrated and sustained in perpetuity. From an economic development standpoint, if you want to go to back to that second slide, there are 3 very important legs to the economic development stool. And historically, economic developers are focused on keeping companies that we have and helping them grow, which is super, super important, and where most of the resources should be put. And then traditional economic developers have also been focused on attracting businesses to relocate to their communities. But creating or starting businesses has historically not been a focus. And it's not just Northwest Pennsylvania. A lot of communities across the country, or the globe for that matter, have forgotten that we were built by entrepreneurs, right? So attraction and retention has been the focus of most communities. Adding in the entrepreneurial development into that 3-legged stool of economic development has been what we've been working towards for the 3 years we've been alive. And the good news is, after 3 years and $750,000, the Erie region and the leadership, we're not necessarily walking it yet, but they're talking the talk. And that they've agreed that economic development needs to include entrepreneurial development.
So you focus a lot in Erie over the last 3 years, but we are also included in your region, right?
Exactly.
So what do you think we need to do here in order to inculcate that kind of entrepreneurial mindset here? Do you start with a nice house program, or where do you start based on your experience with Erie?
The way it worked for us, and in no way means was it perfect, but the way it started with us is we had a public event announcing the existence of the information. And from there, we created a work plan and we created our priorities. And again, the establishment of the educational programs and the events and the Ice House program and co-starters, all of those come into that. So finding the capacity in town here to do it, I was so naive. I thought, oh, we can do this. We're going to be able to do all 8 counties. I'm going to start in Mercer and Erie, and we'll somehow surround it all and all come together. Well, it was just impossible from a capacity standpoint. So finding your champions here and finding the funding to do it, I would say probably 2 people minimum full-time would be good. Great would be 5, but 1 would be really tough. I'm 1 person, and I've been 2 people, and I've been 1.5 people. I need to be 2 people, but right now we're working towards, we hope, the integration of the work into a newly designed Chamber of Commerce in Erie. So this organization currently, as it stands, we're kind of in a purgatory type position. But I think until your community, and maybe your community's ready, but until your community's ready to take ownership of this type of work, you're going to need that grassroots kind of selling, for lack of a better term, for a while.
Organization, yeah.
Did the County of Erie fund you much with that all?
No.
Kauffman Foundation?
No.
So it was purely this one philanthropist?
Right, we had $100,000 from the state to do the study.
Okay.
And get the work plan. And so all of that money went to that, right? It cost $65,000 for the consultant, and we had legal fees and stuff.
Sure.
So, and then the single philanthropist committed to $250,000 a year for 3 years. And we did get some smaller investments from other high net worth folks in Erie, but nowhere near to that extent. I think our biggest one was $20,000 from someone else. Erie Gives Day, and small drips come in.
Sure.
One of the events that we hold every year is called Disrupt Erie, and that's our only fundraiser. We made a little bit of money on that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Not the right way to do it, I'm sure, but it was the way it happened.
think going to the community foundation or some of the philanthropists in town might be,
Well, I think that there's a couple of challenges. One is there are a lot of small programs, kind of like you were talking about that here. That's the way it is here, where you have like little groups where they have like a coffee meeting, to discuss entrepreneurship, or you have like small classes, or one group gets interested in something. It's kind of like this mishmash, but there's no real unifying force in all of it. So that's, to me, I think that there's probably more community interest in that than probably we even realize, just generally speaking, if you kind of listed all of that and pulled it together. So that's one thing. The second thing is that I really like a lot of the items that you discussed about education and about support, because one of the big challenges we have is we have entrepreneurs who start businesses, but many of them just don't have the chops to maintain a business beyond like a 2-year window, and trying to get them to a place where they understand budgeting, projecting, and then marketing and advertising is always a challenge because we have limited marketing resources. To get them over the hump where they can have a sustainable business, because most of them, they have a great idea, they have a great product, but they don't understand business management, and that's frankly probably the biggest challenge we have in having businesses maintained around here, one of the big ones. And trying to figure out some kind of force that could provide mentorship and guidance and education, and it's going to have to be. It would have to be something where the person was super duper motivated, because one of the challenges you have is we've had people like that at different times, and it's just like they either get burned out or just like nobody's listening or what, so it would take a real interest. It'd have to be a perfect formula, I think, for you to get the most out of it that you want. But totally makes sense to me. I mean. And I would echo like your earlier sentiment. When you look at even Warren County, we're very fortunate to have a diverse portfolio of businesses here. And a lot of it has to do with Warren County, I think above and beyond some of the regional counties, has a long history of high-level entrepreneurship. I mean, all of our major businesses that started the booms here after oil and gas and timber were, Betts, Blair, I'm trying to think of all of them. Obviously the refinery. There's just so many. Like Blair started out as a raincoat business, and they basically created the direct mail market of selling stuff directly to people through the mail. And all of that was one person business selling raincoats. So. We need a new raincoat business, is what I'm saying.
Right?
We need somebody who's innovative, like like Betts. I mean, they started doing molds and designing parts for different machines, and turned into a mainstay of our economy. And like a good example for us, I always point to McKissick, because they're one of our few. Businesses where they're focused entirely on the internet and internet education, and I think that for us that's another opportunity. We have a lot of businesses that could be online, and they just don't have the education or the chops to do that. So I think that it would behoove us to figure out a way to kind of bring all of those pieces together and try to train, or educate or mentor, move people in a direction.
Absolutely. Is there an SPDC down here?
well, they come down occasionally. It's the same folks as you have in Erie.
Oh, is it?
They're all
Okay.
in the same coverage area.
Okay. So you don't have an office, like Meadville has an office, don't they?
I believe they do, and we do not.
Okay. One really good first step might be, would you mind, are you on the internet? Can you go to startuperie.com?
Sure.
One of the things that we had Jumpstart work with us on, as well as the development of what we call the entrepreneurial ecosystem asset map. So most of your organizations should be on there, but pulling it out and adding what you know that we don't know onto that, and maybe creating one just for Warren County would be helpful, just to have a picture of who's here and doing what.
Yeah, you have correctly identified pretty much everybody, but I don't think we have it in kind of our own little package. So if we could do that, it would be a step.
Yeah. I feel like just having that graphic of understanding, how big it is or how small it is, and talking through what's working, what's not, what's missing.
Right. That would be good.
And we, again, when I say we're kind of in this strange position as an organization right now, one of my feelings and the board's feelings are we might be at the point where it's time now for us to come and help other communities. And the logical first step is to help the other 7 counties that the original assessment was done on, right? So we're totally open to doing that. And maybe it stays the Innovation Collaborative and we have satellites or what have you. But again, it's just going to take capacity building. But the work is really important. I spent 3 days a couple of weeks ago out at the Kauffman Foundation at their 2nd annual eShip conference. And what we were all working towards is on a national scale, and Kauffman is quasi-leading this, is nationally economic development needs to recognize that entrepreneurship is a very important piece that has been forgotten. And to get entrepreneurial ecosystem building, that's the term they're using, and entrepreneurial ecosystem building, integrated into the International Economic Development Association and a certification and things along those lines. So it's not just our kind of work, it's happening on a national scale.
I apologize for that.
Wonderful to meet you.
Thanks for coming. Naturally, the site's blocked and we got off the network.
Okay, well anyway, there's a map there under resources that you can look at. Sorry.
What's going on? Why this isn't working? This is what I mean with the smoke signals bit.
It's okay.
Well, that's one of the challenges too. Is like the high-speed internet issue, like trying to get broadband access here, like on a larger scale. I think is got to be a priority.
For sure. Where are you at with that?
Well, the big problem is that the telecom companies, there's money available and stuff there. It's just it's expensive to them. So something along the lines of one of 2 things has to happen. Either the federal government has to essentially force them to do it the way they did with the electrical grid when they installed that in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, or we have to come up with some kind of organization or entity that can do it, and then with some kind of subsidized grant program from the Fed. The challenge is that there's a lot of logistical challenges to setting that up, like, depending upon who would do it, there's only so many people that have the technical chops to manage a fiber network of some kind here. And most of them haven't done it because they know that the margins are too small and it's not, to run fiber to a house, a road with 15 people on it, it just isn't feasible to them. I mean, that's why, even downtown Warren, the DSL is from what I understand, is not very good, and people have issued that. But I don't know why else it's not working.
That's amazing. What do you think about
I
that?
hook up to my phone's hotspot, but I have it on
Lose connection.
Yeah, so that I can film the thing. We need to get equipment. Keep doing the shoestring bit.
Well, anyway, that sounds like a good first step. We could get that, I'll blast it out. And then I really would like to pursue Ice House again.
Good.
Is there any, how much does that cost again? The cost of the facilitator basically in the books.
The facilitator the books and access to the online content.
Survey, yeah.
So, the books are one price, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 bucks each, and then the class access is $100 a head, and then the facilitator.
Okay.
And then if you're paying for food or location or what have you.
Right.
The facilitators, there's always 2. You can do it in a 3-week or a 3-day boot camp. You can do it in 1 night a week or 1 day a week for 3 hours each for 8 weeks. The schools, it's very pliable. You can do it as a semester-long course in a school or a college. So it's up to you how you want to get that set up. And again, it's just difficult, I know. There were key people that were like, you gotta come, you gotta be a part of this, and there was just no way they could make it work in their schedule. So it's finding the dates and then aligning those with the facilitators to be available is gonna be key.
Okay. Is there any funding of your way that might help with that?
Our United Way did help with the schools, so I don't know, there's a United Way here, right?
Here, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, possibly.
Can't get it on the phone either.
It's gotta be, the security's gotta be blocking it.
Yep. Probably on the right number.
Well, Ed can't get it on his phone.
Well, are you on the Wi-Fi? Are you?
It got that far
Huh.
and stopped.
Anyway.
Yeah, and the rest of this presentation, feel free to read through it. I guess the key takeaways are that it really is key activity, and we do have to get community buy-in, and that can take some time. But the things that we've done, I mean, you can certainly replicate those. We can share, what's been challenging and what's worked and what hasn't. Consistent marketing is very expensive. Our budget, $250,000 a year. More than half of that was spent on marketing. Because you have to be consistent and you have to be constantly hitting people from every direction. I'll tell you what, people don't believe it, but the billboards are just as effective as television, which was interesting. Because when we first got bids on billboards, we're like, what? It's just as expensive as TV, but once we had them up, people were seeing them all over the place.
Everybody fast forwards to ads on television. I don't know that yeah.
TV was good too, though. I mean, we did hear a lot.
Well,
of
when you
people,
have a lot of traffic in like an urban area, the billboard can be very effective.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to hit entrepreneurs who are, going to be traveling and doing different stuff anyway.
Yeah, and another key was the marketing strategy was around the work. We've, again, since day one, we didn't expect to exist forever. We're trying to get the community to take ownership. So we were featuring entrepreneurs and we were featuring the service providers like the universities or angel investors or whoever, the library. So featuring people that other people know is really good marketing too. People kind of are drawn to seeing somebody's face on a billboard that they might know.
Good. Well, anything else you want to say or any questions for Beth?
Yeah, I'm good. Any questions you might have, please, now or later.
Okay.
I do have a question. This is Commissioner Morrison. Do you have what you presented today in a printout or electronic format?
We'll leave a printout in your box.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. It's been a very interesting presentation.
You're welcome. That's not it.
But,
Startup Erie, PA.
oh,
So one of my board members actually bought that years ago and never did anything with it. I have to go look back at it again because now it looks like they've done something. So under resources there,
ecosystem map.
yeah. And then-
See the full ecosystem map.
Yeah, so then that graphic there is key. All of those different pods around the entrepreneurs are important. And storytelling with the newspapers and the other media channels was really key. And increasing the number of stories that are told about entrepreneurs, whether they've been in existence for 50 years or 6 months. It's the more the community sees about that stuff, the more they start to get it.
Good. Yeah, I have that tacked up on my wall at the other office. Good stuff. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, then we'll move on to the rest of the meeting.
Do you want me to go hang out somewhere else?
You're welcome to hang out here if you want.
Okay.
It'll just be a couple minutes.
Okay.
I am not aware, I don't have any active projects I need to bring up today, they can never wait. And the commissioners' meeting isn't until next week, so we can skip that. Any department updates?
Just, I'll be at the fair on next week.
Right. Commissioner Eccleston, you have any projects you want to raise or schedules?
No, there's just a couple things I wanted to discuss. One is that this week and next week, the next few weeks, we're going to be installing benches along the bike trail.
Saw a couple of them today.
Yeah, they turned out really nice. I'm going to be putting out a news release on that, and I'll send it to you to take a look at. Hunter Smith, as part of a Boy Scout project as a part of an Eagle Scout project, took over it. You remember at the beginning of last year, everybody was talking about wanting benches more benches and more places to sit and stuff. Anyway, he initiated a program with utilizing benches from Whitmire Block, and I've told you about this before. He presses them to make them look like wood. They're really fascinating. They're concrete.
Awesome.
Speaking of a business, I just, I told him, I was like, I could market the heck out of your business. It would be great. And he's like, yeah, but there wouldn't be any fun anymore. I just had to laugh because I was like, we could be shipping these things everywhere, And I think he kind of just really enjoys his work. So anyway, we're going to be installing those the next few weeks. There were a bunch of Boy Scouts there on Friday, and Dan Glotz helped, kind of direct them, and we installed them along. We're going to put a bunch of them next to the soccer fields and stuff like that. So that's turned out to be a really nice project. And then the other thing is that I talked to Dan and I talked to Pam as well. We had our town hall meeting last week in Columbus, and it was another situation where we had another discussion about the brine situation in the county. DEP has basically banned brine utilization on roads, and due to environmental concerns related to chemicals in the brine. But what this has done is essentially caused a problem for what are the more economically challenged townships and boroughs in the county that have dirt roads. Many of them, brine is essentially cheap or free to distribute on the roads, and it helps to keep the dust down. And then they also use it in the winter in order to de-ice the roads because there's just a level of salt in it. I don't want to say unfortunately, but the bulk of the initial discussion at the town hall meeting was about this brine issue and what we were going to do about it. Obviously, the county doesn't own any roads or have any responsibility to de-ice or plow, or that's a municipal challenge. What we can do is coordinate with the municipalities in order to address the issue, help it address the issue within the county, and then also have a conversation with Harrisburg about trying to find alternatives or find other ways of dealing with this issue. We met with several people who have been involved with the brine industry, or having involvement with dispersing material on roads, and they had some recommendations that they felt would be a middle road solution, or figure out ways that we can work with DEP in order to have an alternative, because for most people and most of the municipalities that have a paved road, they don't care. It's like, well, who cares one way or the other? For those who live on dirt roads, it's a major issue. This weekend, I just went to a relative of mine in a municipality, and they had to pay $300 just to have the space in front of their house done to tamp the dust down. It's just kind of like it's created a huge cost, and for these municipalities, and some of them, it can be tens of thousands of dollars of additional cost that was unbudgeted that they have to spend in order to figure out an alternative. So I'm letting you know this because I'm going to to have a conversation with Pam, with Dan, with the COG, and then also contact the townships and boroughs in order to come up with a solution. Because although the summer's almost over and we're going to, really, there's not a whole lot we can do today, right now, to take care of it. We've got a plan for next year and also plan for the winter, because this came out of nowhere a couple of months ago, and they're all kind of figuring out their own solution. And I think that there might be a way, if we can get everybody together, to work on a joint solution where, whether it's figuring out another mix of material that maybe, pacifies the environmental concerns, or, a bulk purchase of material that's an alternative that can be used, and then they save money through the collective purchase, something along those lines, because we've got to do something, because for the townships that have dirt roads, it's a major problem. So I just...
Yeah, I would like to add something to that. I had a meeting, I believe it was last summer, with a firm that does alternative spray methods on roadways. And the only drawback to the township that was interested and that I met with is that the funding. So I would be interested in bringing that person in to discuss that, and to find other companies who do this alternative method as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, I think that the goal is going to be that any option should be put on the table to take a look at. My concern is that the townships don't coordinate with each other, and as a result end up spending a fortune on something when another township has a provider or a vendor that can provide it cheaper, or there's some kind, somebody's aware of a solution that will work. So the goal is going to be...
I'll get that information on who that was that I was in touch with, and maybe I can get a few more names, and we can reach out to them and maybe have a meeting with some of the township supervisors to see if they'd like to explore those options.
That would be great.
My recommendation would be, since we don't have any control over the roads, that if you two want to take this on, fantastic, but I'd suggest doing it through the COG. That's where you'll get the most impact.
Well, I mean...
Well, all those townships are not involved with the COG. That's the only drawback with that.
Yeah.
Well, there's none here.
We
There's at least a majority of the COG.
Well, we would definitely utilize the COG, or talk about it at the COG. I think that's definitely one part of it, absolutely. But I agree with Commissioner Morrison in the sense that out of the 27 municipalities we have, there's probably 10 or 7 or 10 that aren't in it, and then of the 20 that are in it, about 15 or 14 maybe show up on a regular basis.
I would just recommend that you make all the townships aware that they can come to that public meeting where you do your presentation.
Yeah. Well, no, we're going to do that too. I guess what I'm saying is I think that what we'll do is have Pam contact the secretaries and coordinate like a discussion with them to say, what's your situation? Because the other issue with this is that there's several municipalities that don't use brine at all that have dirt roads. Like they do other things. They don't actually like using brine on the road. So it's not trying to find a one size fits all. But I agree with you, Ben, that one initial thing has to be working through the COG, because that would be a good way to coordinate information.
Okay.
Any avenues we can use to get the information out, we should pursue.
Yep.
Okay, any other project updates or schedule updates?
Commissioners will be at CCAP next week.
Yeah, I'm heading down. I have a meeting on Friday, one on Saturday, one on Sunday, and then we're off to the races Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I'll be gone starting Friday morning.
Very exciting.
Any public comment? There's no cause for executive session, so I guess we are adjourned.